The glass of Orphean Station gleamed like a blade drawn in silence. From the upper atrium, Commander Rylan Voss stared through its sterile clarity at the great coil of stars beyond. Out there, galaxies bloomed. In here, political rot festered under expensive carpets and polished words. His earpiece buzzed. "Your assignment's en route," came Lieutenant Farrow's voice, dry as ever. "Try not to insult this one. She's Zurelian." Rylan sighed. "Noted. Shall I bow or bark? Smile, maybe. Or don't. Just don't get court-martialed." He shut the comm and straightened his posture just as the grand entry doors parted with a hiss. She entered like cold wind in a cathedral. Sailray Ixhan didn't walk. She glided. Tall, sharp, dressed in ceremonial silver robes that shimmered like mercury. Her blue-green skin glowed subtly under Orphean's lights. Eyes violet and precise. Every movement calculated to declare, "I do not belong to you." Her escort, a trembling junior aide, bowed too low and vanished quickly. Rylan didn't move. She stopped in front of him, gaze slicing downward from his boots to his scarred face. Then she said it. "You're the human assigned to me. Not you must be or are you. No room for error. Just judgment." Rylan gave a thin smile. Commander Rylan Voss. Human. Liaison. Occasionally sarcastic. She didn't blink. "Your file described your bluntness. Efficient. Unrefined. Yours said you're allergic to empathy," he replied. That got a flicker in her lip. Almost a smile. Almost. They walked the halls in silence, footsteps echoing against the chrome and glass of Orphean's diplomacy ring. Rylan stole a glance. Her posture was flawless. No swaying hips, no emotional leakage. Everything contained. "First time on a human station?" he asked. "No. But first time with a babysitter." He stopped. "Let's get one thing straight. I'm not here to hold your hand. I'm here because someone tried to poison your last guard." She turned, face unreadable. He was weak. "Your species tends to underestimate quiet threats." Rylan stepped closer. "And yours tends to invite them with arrogance." Another flicker. This time in her eyes. She didn't respond. Instead, she moved on, brushing past him with the grace of a swan and the warmth of a scalpel. The diplomatic banquet was a theater of glass smiles. Ambassadors, ministers, and sentient nobility filled the vaulted chamber beneath floating holographs of unified treaties. Rylan stood beside Sailray like a shadow. He watched her glide through conversations, dismantling egos with a nod or a clipped phrase. The Zurelians didn't do small talk. They negotiated with glances and phrasing sharp enough to draw blood. "Your turn to act civil," she murmured, handing him a crystal of dark liquid. He sniffed it. "This gonna sterilize me?" "Only if you're lucky." He chuckled, surprising even himself. She didn't laugh, but her lip twitched. That half expression again. Like she wanted to know what it felt like to be amused and hated herself for it. Then his instincts screamed. A waiter passed too close. No badge. Wrong posture. Rylan moved. In one motion, he grabbed Sailray and shoved her down, his back catching the brunt of the explosion behind them. Shards of glass sang through the air. Screams followed. He covered her, body shielding hers as smoke filled the chamber. "Station lockdown," barked security through comms. "Secure dignitaries. Sector 4 breach." Sailray pushed at his chest. "Unhand me. You want to die with dignity, or live with me," he growled. She stilled. The emergency shelter was buried deep within Orphean's core. No windows. Just matte walls, filtered air, and silence so thick it pulsed. Rylan slammed the door shut behind them and activated manual locks. Sailray stood in the middle of the room, robes torn at the shoulder, blood his, not hers, streaking down his arm. She eyed it like a curious lab subject. "You're injured. I noticed." She approached, reaching out, fingers surprisingly gentle. "Your pulse is erratic. It happens when I get blown up." She met his gaze. "You saved me." He sat down with a grunt. "It's my job." She lowered herself across from him, folding her legs. "You're efficient, Commander. But reckless. He chuckled. You're welcome. For a long time, neither spoke. The emergency lights cast the room in sterile white. Her expression began to shift, softening like frost in morning sun. You didn't hesitate, she said, finally. Didn't have time to consider your diplomatic immunity. Still. You shielded me. She paused. Why? He leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. Because maybe under all that protocol, you're still someone worth saving. That silenced her more effectively than any insult could. Hours passed. They ate emergency rations in awkward silence. She observed everything, his posture, his habits, even how he chewed. Her curiosity was disarming. Like she'd never seen someone live without shame before. Do humans always act without thinking? She asked. He swallowed. No. Some think too much. Get stuck in their heads. Forget how to feel. She tilted her head. You're not one of those. No. I feel. I just don't always like what I feel. She looked away. That. I understand. That was the first time she dropped the act. No sarcasm. No diplomacy. Just truth. Later, when the lights dimmed automatically to simulate night, she stood near the corner, brushing her long hair with fingers that seemed too delicate to belong to someone who'd survived court politics. He lay on the emergency cot, arms behind his head. Watching her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she was finally real. I never thought your kind could bleed, he said quietly. She looked back at him. I never thought yours could care. They held each other's gaze. Not as soldier and diplomat. Not as alien and human. But as two people trapped in silence, grappling with something neither wanted to name yet. Something growing. Like a flame. And for the first time since war had broken him, Rylan Voss didn't want to run from the heat. The shelter was soundless, no footsteps, no alerts, just the hum of life support and the unspoken weight between them. Sailray sat rigid near the console wall, her face washed in pale light from the data panel. Rylan stood across from her, shoulder braced against the door, arms crossed. The moment after a blast always felt louder than the explosion itself. It lingered in memory, in breath, in shared silence. You didn't have to throw yourself over me, Sailray said. He didn't look at her. You'd prefer being vapor. I'd prefer not owing you. Then call it a professional reflex. She rose to her feet. Your reflexes bruise. And you bruise easy. Her eyes narrowed. Zurelians don't bruise. He smirked. Then that blue mark on your arm is either artistic expression or I saved the wrong diplomat. Silence again. Sharp, but thinner now. Time crawled inside the shelter. No comms. No updates. Just recycled air and proximity. Rylan unzipped his uniform jacket and examined the stitched cut across his ribs. Still bleeding. Not bad, just annoying. Sailray stepped forward, her hand extending before she hesitated. I've been trained in basic field triage. He raised a brow. Didn't expect that. You assume diplomats only know how to posture. Not just assume. I've seen it. He sat, pulling up his shirt slightly. Fine. Be my medic. She knelt in front of him, pulling a sterile wrap from the emergency kit. Her fingers were cool and deliberate. No trembling. She worked in silence until. You flinched, she said. He met her gaze. You touched the scar. A thin ridge crossed from his side to his back, an old wound. How did it happen? Zurelian boarding team. 3 years ago. Thought surrender meant compliance. She paused. That was not authorized. Doesn't make it untrue. Her hands stilled. We've made mistakes. He studied her. And now you're here. Treaty in hand. Trying to fix what your people broke. I'm here to ensure survival. By making alliances with people you don't respect. She wrapped the bandage tighter than necessary. You think I don't respect you? I know you don't like me. She leaned back on her heels. Liking is irrelevant. Efficiency is what matters. He chuckled, low and dry. You say that like you believe it. Their eyes locked again. Later, they shared dehydrated protein packs, seated across from each other like rivals on a truce. Sailray broke the quiet. You said earlier that you feel things. That most humans do. He chewed slowly. We feel everything. Some of us learn to live with it. Some drown. And you? He paused. Still learning. She tilted her head. Zurelians are taught to contain emotion. Not to suppress it, but to file it away. Like data? Yes. He set down his food. That's why you're always composed. Not because you're cold. Because you're trained. She looked down. Sometimes, I wonder what it would be like to not file it away. He waited. To feel something, without restraint. Try it. She blinked. Now? Yes. She hesitated. What if it's dangerous? It probably is. Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. Sleep came in shifts. Rylan took the cot, Sailray claimed the meditation corner. But neither really rested. In the artificial twilight, Rylan sat up and looked across at her. You still awake? Her voice drifted across the dim room. Yes. Thinking. No. Feeling. He smiled faintly. Good. I have a question. Shoot. Why didn't you pull rank back there? During the explosion. Most soldiers would demand a report, yell orders. But you just acted. Rylan shrugged. Orders don't save lives. Instinct does. She moved to sit across from him, robe gathered loosely around her. Instinct, she repeated. They stared at one another for a long moment. Then she leaned forward. Do humans act on all their instincts? Not all, he said softly. Some, you fight. Some, you don't. Her breath slowed. And which is this? Before he could answer, she closed the distance and kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't rehearsed. It was heat, the kind that lingers behind the eyes and burns at the fingertips. She kissed like someone who didn't know how, but wanted to. He kissed like someone who did and had forgotten what it felt like to need it. His hand cupped her cheek. She trembled under it. Not from fear. When they broke apart, she didn't speak. Neither did he. She stood and stepped back, eyes searching his face. I don't know what I'm doing, she admitted. You're doing fine, he replied. She shook her head. This wasn't planned. Neither was the bomb. A hint of laughter escaped her. Real. Uncontrolled. It startled them both. She didn't return to her corner. Instead, she lay beside him, not touching, not speaking, just breathing the same air in silence. And in the dark, the distance between alien and human stopped mattering. When the lockdown lifted, a soft alert tone echoed. The moment shattered. Sailray rose, robes tightened again, face masked in calm. The diplomat was back. Rylan sat up, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Back to reality, he muttered. She nodded. I'll speak to the council. Quietly. The attempt will be buried. It always is. And us. She paused at the door. There is no us, Commander. He studied her. That a lie you tell me, or yourself? She didn't answer. Then she was gone. Sailray sat still as the scan hovered above her abdomen, its pale green light pulsing across her skin. The sterile hum of the Zurelian medical suite should have soothed her. It didn't. The medic stared at the results for too long. That's not possible, he whispered, voice-breaking protocol. Sailray's voice was flat. Repeat the data. The scan refreshed, glowing brighter. Confirmed, intrauterine life form. Hybrid signature, Zurelian human. Vital signs stable. Gestational progression, 6.3 days. The medic stepped back, pale as frost. Your biology, it shouldn't allow this. I am aware, she said coldly, tugging her robe back over her stomach. Leave. Now. He fled. She stood alone in the silence, hands trembling. A thing she hadn't done since childhood. Not in war councils, not in negotiations. But now. With a life forming inside her. Impossible. Unacceptable. Yet real. Rylan paced the observation deck, gaze drifting to the stars, fingers curled into fists. He hadn't heard from Sailray in days. After the lockdown, she'd retreated behind layers of protocol and distance. The silence burned more than her barbs ever had. He'd replayed that night more times than he'd admit. Not just the kiss, but the way she'd looked at him after. Like he'd unlocked something she didn't know she wanted. Then she was gone. He wasn't supposed to care. But he did. The door hissed open behind him. He turned and froze. Sailray stood there, expression unreadable, her long coat trailing behind her like the shadow of the woman she had to be. "You're hard to track down," she said. "Didn't want to be found," he replied. They stared at each other. Neither moved. Finally, she stepped forward. "I need to speak to you. Privately." He led her to the restricted comms room. It was dark and quiet. No surveillance. She didn't sit. "I'm pregnant." The words hit harder than any blow he'd taken in combat. "What?" "I am pregnant," she repeated, each syllable deliberate. "With your child." He blinked. "That's not. I mean, biologically. It's not supposed to be possible," she said, cutting him off. "Zurelians haven't reproduced naturally in generations. Our genetics are stagnant." Rylan exhaled slowly, absorbing the magnitude. "So how?" "I don't know. Something about our pairing activated dormant reproductive sequences. It's being studied." "By who?" "The High Council." Rylan's jaw clenched. "And what do they want?" Her voice turned cold. "The child. They want to extract it. Study it. Terminate if necessary." "No," he said instantly. "It's not your decision." "The hell it isn't," he snapped. "You didn't make that child alone." She looked down. For a moment, her voice trembled. "I didn't think I could feel this. Want this. But now that it's real, I can't let them have it." "Then let's stop them." Her eyes widened slightly. "You would protect me." "I'm not protecting you," he said. "I'm protecting what we made." That night, Rylan and Sailray met in a disused cargo wing. She wore civilian gear, hood low. He had the access codes and route mapped. "We're going to the human outpost on Inara 12, he explained. "They'll shelter you. We've got standing protocols for political refugees." She hesitated. "I'm not a refugee. You are now." She looked at him. "And you? What happens to your commission?" He shrugged. "I stopped caring about my badge the day I realized it stood for nothing." She studied him for a beat too long. Then nodded. "Let's go." The escape wasn't quiet. Zurelian guards intercepted them at Hangar C. Rylan disabled 2 with stun rounds. Sailray used her diplomatic override to seal doors behind them. "You fight dirty," he said, catching his breath behind a crate. She smirked. "I learned from the best." They reached the shuttle, breathless, bruised, and alive. As the engines fired, Sailray looked back one last time at Orphean Station, its clean towers, its lifeless perfection. She didn't feel pride. She felt loss. Inside the shuttle, Rylan sat across from her, arms resting on his knees. "You okay?" he asked. "No," she said honestly. "But I will be." They didn't touch. But something passed between them. Something quiet and binding. "You're not alone," he said. She nodded once. "I believe you." 2 days later, orbiting Inara 12, Sailray stood before the Human Council in a temporary hearing. "I am not here to defect," she said. "I am here to survive." The human diplomats debated privately. But the news had already spread, a Zurelian carrying a human child. Proof of genetic compatibility. A threat and a miracle. The Council's answer was clear. "We will offer sanctuary. But if Zurelians come for the child, we will defend them. As one of our own." In a private room later, Sailray stood near the window. Her hand rested gently on her stomach. Rylan approached behind her. "We did it." She shook her head. "No. We just bought time." He stepped closer. "Then we use it." She turned. "Why are you still here, Rylan?" He paused. "Because I've seen too much death. And now I get to see life. That's not something I walk away from." She reached out. This time, when their hands met, it wasn't an accident. It was a choice. The alarms came at dawn. Rylan jolted awake, instinct already pushing him toward the door. His comm flashed red, Zurelian warcraft, 3 ships inbound. Sailray stood by the window, hand on her stomach, calm in a way only diplomats trained since childhood could be. "They're early," she said. "They're armed," Rylan replied, grabbing his sidearm. "And they're not here to talk." On the outpost command deck, tension thickened the air. Human officers stood in quiet readiness while orbital feeds showed the Zurelian vessels locking into formation. Sailray entered behind Rylan, her hood down. The human ambassador turned to her. "They claim you've been abducted." "I wasn't," she said simply. "They say the child is theirs by genetic right." "I won't be a specimen," she said. "And neither will my child." Rylan stepped forward. "If they try to cross into human space, we treat it as an act of aggression." The ambassador nodded grimly. "Then we stand by our promise." The room quieted. Sailray looked at Rylan. "We need another way." She opened a channel to the Zurelian High Council. The image of Councillor Thalrin appeared, his face an unreadable mask behind ceremonial garb. "You will return," he said without prelude. "Or we will retrieve you." "I won't," she replied, eyes steel. "You carry what we need. I carry what I chose to create. That child is more than yours. It is evolution. And evolution belongs to the species." Sailray lifted her chin. "Then the species must evolve to understand that life is not owned. It is protected." Rylan stepped beside her on screen. "Come for her, and you'll see just how protective humans can be." The channel cut. That night, they sat beneath the stars on the quiet slope behind the compound. Inara's moons cast a pale glow across the grass. Sailray leaned against Rylan, tired but composed. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "What?" "Not walking away. Not letting this be someone else's war." He shook his head. "I've walked away from too many things. Not this." She placed his hand gently on her stomach. "I've never felt this before," she said. "Movement. Life. Inside me." He turned to her. "What does it feel like?" She smiled faintly. "Like something refusing to be ignored." "Sounds human." She chuckled. "Maybe too much." The next day, an envoy shuttle descended. No weapons. Just one Zurelian diplomat. Councillor Yves. Female. Older. Scarred. Sailray met her alone in the arboretum. "You made a mess," Yves said. "I made a choice. The council is divided. Some want you dead. Others want the child harvested. But a few see potential. Then you know why I can't return." Yves studied her. "You are the first in 5 generations to feel natural emotion without suppression therapy. And now, the first to conceive naturally." Sailray nodded. Yves's voice lowered. "Do you love him?" Sailray paused. "Yes." Yves let the silence speak for itself. "Then you've already changed more than you know." The treaty renegotiation began 3 days later on Inara soil, in neutral light. Sailray stood before both delegations, her robes simple, her presence undeniable. "I stand not just as a Zurelian diplomat," she said, "but as proof that what we feared about humanity, its chaos, its emotion, its unpredictability, is also what we need to survive." The room held its breath. "My child is not a weapon. Not a threat. She is a bridge. Between past and future. Between fear and hope." A murmur rippled through the Zurelian delegation. Sailray turned to the human side. "You gave me refuge. You gave me time. But what matters most is that you gave me a choice. Something my people forgot how to offer." She looked at Rylan. "And one man gave me something no treaty ever could: honesty." The vote was unanimous. 7 months later. Sailray sat in the sunlight, her newborn wrapped in soft woven cloth against her chest. The child slept peacefully, her skin a dusky lavender, tiny fingers curling instinctively when Rylan brushed them. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's loud," Sailray replied. "Good. That's how you know she's part me." They both laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from exhaustion and awe. Around them, Inara's garden bloomed. Visitors from both species walked freely now. Tension still hung in the air, But it was different now, shaped by curiosity instead of fear. Sailray leaned into Ryland's side. I used to think emotion was a liability. And now? She looked down at her daughter. Now I know it's the source of everything that matters. He kissed her temple. You still arrogant? Always. He smirked. Good. Wouldn't have fallen in love otherwise. Final line. She was born from an impossible union, between pride and tenderness, logic and instinct, but when her mother held her, and her father smiled, there was only one truth left standing in the ruins of diplomacy. Love never asks for permission, only for courage.